Okay, part 3. So it's been a little over 24 hours. I set the dough out a couple hours ago, and a second fermentation didn't really come out. The dough didn't rise properly. The yeast I used was probably going on a year old, so clearly past its prime. So I got a little bit of rise out of the first fermentation. Second fermentation, we're just gonna see how it goes. Don't think I got much. Using a silicone spatula to pull that out. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna divide this into roughly 4 equal pieces with a bench scraper. Not doing any measurements, but and we'll form these into balls. And as you can tell, the dough is significantly less sticky than it was in the last one. Hoping this will rise a little bit, but I did put it directly in the refrigerator after doing the mix, so I'm hoping maybe that slowed it, but we'll see. Ooh. And I'm just pretty much taking the outside and folding it in. And I'm wanting to make a ball. So taking it, folding it, pinching it, and going around like that. Until I seal it off. Set it back down. Doing the same thing. Getting the last one. Okay, what you want to do is you want to cover it generally with a slightly damp cloth, let it rise, or at least double up. But since my yeast isn't necessarily going to work, I'm going to give it a few minutes, see if it does anything, and then we'll move on to the next step. Okay, it's been about 15 minutes. There's a little yeast in here. As you can see, I'm getting some small bubbles, but I'm going to go ahead and get started. Normally you'd want to let it rise for 30 minutes to maybe an hour, but I'm going to show you generally how I handle my pizza dough and keep it from sticking, and so I can get it on a pizza brick. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off, fire up my oven. I have a pizza oven here. It is a Cuisinart. And this one goes up to 700 degrees. I'm going to set it to around 600. And I'm going to let that run and heat up for a little while. So to keep my pizza dough from sticking, I have some coarse cornmeal. Semi-coarse. More of a fine cornmeal. Brand particularly doesn't matter. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my pizza dough, toss it in the cornmeal, and coat it. It's going to be kind of my non-stick coat. If you're doing the traditional style pizza, they might lay a light layer of semolina flour on the bottom of the peel in order to get it into the oven. But I'm just coating this so I can spread it easier and it doesn't stick. Gives you a little bit of texture when you're on the pizza once it's done. So I've done that. Moving the cornmeal off to the side. I'll take my pizza peel. I'll move these back. So this is also similar to the size of the pizza oven. So this is the surface I'm working with. I'm going to add a little bit more cornmeal. And of course it's going to be a little messy in the oven, so it will have to be cleaned out after it cools. So set that back to the side, try not to spill it. I'm going to take my pizza. You can toss it, but what I'm doing is I'm kind of cupping it. I'm lightly stretching. I'm letting it go around. I'm just using its own weight to stretch it. And I'm leaving a little bit of room for the crust, because I want that to be a little thick. Kind of like a bowl, so it can hold some of the sauce and the cheese in. And as you can see, it's stretching out quite well. And it's sticking to itself a little bit. So at this point, toss a little more cornmeal on it. And once I get it out around here, I'm going to let it rest for a moment, because when you're adding the cornmeal, you're going to mess with the hydration of the dough. Or if you use a coarse flour, you're going to mess with the hydration of the dough. You're making it less sticky, but if I let this sit here for a few minutes, it will stick. But I'm just going to, if this dough was a lot more recently kneaded, it would be fighting me quite a bit more, and it would want to have a lot of pull back. I've also got it a little too thin in some of these places, kind of like a little window pane. So what I'm going to do for that is I'm just going to fold it over, pinch it, or press it. Then I'm just going to let this oven come up to temperature, and we'll continue from there. Okay, it's been a little while. The oven's up, or near up to temp. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and transfer this pizza to the pizza peel. I did add a little extra cornmeal before I did the last cut. Well, there it is, oven's at temp. So I'm just adjusting it, and I want my pizza to be, or my dough to be able to shuffle, be able to slide around. As you can see, it's sticking over here. So I'm going to grab a little more cornmeal. I'll lift up by a fairly generous amount there. Okay. Sticking here. It's also because I pre-shaped the dough a little too early. Okay. And now over here. Okay, there we go. It's completely mobile. So you want to be fairly fast on this part. So you can take your pizza sauce and if you're doing a Neapolitan size or style pizza, you want to go light on sauce. And you want to leave a little towards the end. I probably added a little too much sauce towards the end. And generally what you'd want to use for an authentic style sauce is you could use like San Marzano whole peeled tomatoes and just crush them. I'll add a little cheese to it. This is mozzarella whole milk, low moisture whole milk. Just gonna go light on the cheese here. Make sure I can still move it, which I can. And then I'm gonna add it to the pizza oven over here. And we're gonna let that cook for a moment. I'll get back with you as soon as it's done. Should only take maybe about 5 minutes or so, maybe less. Okay, and we're back. It's been about 7 or 8 minutes. So we're gonna pull the pizza. I'm gonna grab a wire rack. That's what we're looking at. Let's take a look underneath the pizza. It's got a little bit of browning there. So I'm going to go ahead and cut it. Give it a little taste test. A little bit of a crunch, but not much. If the dough would have risen properly, it would have been a lot better. Let's take a look. Got some nice browning. Fair amount of firmness. Now this should be a lot thicker from the dough rising, but I'm going to give it a little taste test. Dough has a good bit of flavor, but it is lacking. Having fresh new yeast or fresher yeast would have given me a better result. And I'm not satisfied with the shape of this pizza, so I'm going to do another one. We'll get one that looks a little better. Okay, so we have the doughs back here. These have been sitting here for a while. That's what I'm going to do. Take a little more cornmeal. Spread it out. Set that there. And then on this one, I'm going to press. Not going to stretch it, but I'm going to press. Since the gluten's had a lot, the bread's had a lot of time to rest, it's very easy for me to adjust it. So I'm going to take my peel, which is still a little warm. And add a generous amount of cornmeal. I'll transfer this over here. Something a little more round, a little more uniform. And I'm going to spruce this one up a bit more. Some cornmeal original pepperonis. Want a little pepperoni on my pizza. Going to do 1 spoonful of sauce. Like to add a little oregano. Gives it a little bit of a kick. Spruces it up a little bit. Going to add the cheese. Probably going to go a little heavier on this and push it closer to the edge. And this is probably the thickness I'd recommend for this quantity of dough. Something about this big. The reason you want to leave a little space on the edge is when you're using a stone, or at least especially a pizza stone that's in this oven, it tends to stick pretty badly if you get the cheese on there. But it's pretty easy to get off. You just keep the oven running for a little while, and you pretty much just burn the cheese off. And then you let it cool. It'll be like charcoal, like a carbon buildup. Then you can just easily scrape it off later. It's going to stink up the house though, so if you actually have to go a little extra, and burn it off, it might be good to sit it outside while you're running it, so you don't stink up the house or smoke it up. Okay. Well, even though I added all that cornmeal, still wants to stick a little over here. There we go. It's loose. We'll add it over here and we'll check out, see how this one does. I'll see you in just a second. Okay. I'm going to check on our next pizza. That one looks a good bit better. Cut it and see how the crust looks. It still didn't rise, and I had a few bites of the other one I cooked off camera, and I would say it had the dough had the taste and consistency of something like a really fresh, lightly toasted bagel. It's quite moist in the middle. This one has quite a bit of cheese, so it's going to have a little run. And there we go. Right there. Ooh, hot. So it's got a good bit of crust there. A little of the cheese and pepperoni juice drip. I think that's going to be a little bit better. But for sticking it out with me, I'm going to give you a little bonus tip. So if you don't have a pizza oven or a pizza stone, and you have access to something like a cast iron skillet or a griddle, if you do have access to a cast iron skillet or a griddle, and this is just one of the Academy Lodge, I believe this is the 12 or 13 inch. It's pretty big, pretty heavy, probably about 15 pounds. If you have access to a toaster oven or a regular oven, you can set it up to the maximum temperature. Take your skillet, you don't have to put anything in it. Set it on the burner, or set it on a stovetop burner, and crank it up as high as it can go. Let it sit there for about 15-20 minutes. If you have any type of seasoning, it'll probably start to smoke. You might have to re-season it afterwards. And if you feel safe doing it, you can grab yourself a mitt, 2 mitts, take the skillet, flip it upside down, and insert it into your toaster oven, preferably handle backwards. So this is closer. And then you can take that couple inch clearance, and then you can either, before you set it in, you can throw a little cornmeal on there. You can either use a plate or a pizza peel, and you can set it on top of the cast iron skillet, and you can cook it that way. Now that will give you a crust more resembling that, and that's one of the only ways I can really think of getting a proper crust using a traditional oven or a traditional toaster oven. But that'll be it for today. I'm hopefully going to get some fresher ingredients, and I'll bring you another video, and we'll make a special sauce next time. So next time, take care.